Welcome to Perspectives, a podcast where the clergy women of the First United Methodist Church of San Diego share their musings on scripture, theology, and what it has to do with us.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Perspectives. I'm Reverend Brittany, and I'm here with Reverend Trudy. We are continuing in our money story. This is week 3, and this week we're talking about what it looks like to reimagine. Our scripture comes from the book of Leviticus, chapter 25, verses 8 through 12. You shall count off 7 weeks of years, 7 times 7 years. So that period of 7 weeks of years gives 49 years. Then you shall have the trumpets sounded loud, and on the 10th day of the 7th month, on the day of atonement, you shall have the trumpet sounded throughout all of your land. And you shall hallow the 50th year, and you shall proclaim liberty throughout the land and to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you, and you shall return, every one of you, to your property, and every one of you to your family. That 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. You shall not sow or reap the aftergrowth, or harvest the unpruned vines. For it is a jubilee. It shall be holy to you. You shall eat only what the field itself produces. Reverend Trudy, Jubilee. I've always heard Jubilee in church, of course, and it's essentially just a big celebration that we, at least growing up in my church, we called most of our celebrations like a Jubilee celebration.
Okay.
As a special kind of anniversary time.
Okay. Did it have the same kind of practice that we see in this scripture passage of debt and recovery and
it
that
was
kind of
usually
thing?
Around money.
Oh,
some
really?
type of like stewardshipy kind of Jubilee celebration in my Baptist church.
Okay.
I don't necessarily remember anything about debts being repaid, but it was, I think, the church's way of trying to pay off its debt.
Oh, I see. Okay.
From what we did.
Sure.
Remixing it up a bit.
There you go. Well, it's funny because I don't remember hearing about Jubilee at all.
Oh, really?
At all. I mean, we might have called a choir the Jubilee Choir, right? But nothing at all like this is saying.
Yeah.
And I first encountered this in seminary, and I thought, man, that is so cool, right?
Yeah.
As I'm an idealist, right? So
Me
yeah,
too,
right.
most of the time.
We want things to be absolutely ideal, and this is it, right?
Yeah,
this is it.
Well, we see some of that, like Reverend Hannah and I talked about that last week a bit with this 7 number, right? And if you think about our economic system with like bankruptcy, right?
Right.
You're in that for 7 years, or something stays on your credit report for 7 years. That kind of so you can see how they like
if you wait.
They extrapolate a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, not enough.
Certainly not enough.
Not to the extent that we're talking here. Leviticus is nobody's favorite Bible book.
Really?
Am I right?
It's my,
Is that your favorite?
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
no.
Unless you want to go to sleep quickly. There's a lot to it, and this passage is one of 10 chapters, 17 through 27, that they call the Holiness codes, right? And this is part of the law,
right,
that is trying to separate Israel. The Jewish people at the time, from their neighbors.
Right.
And so this Holiness Code really was the law that they needed to follow, the whole 10 chapters of it, right? And it was this mixture of contradiction, I think. And I think it was probably a moment where of renewal, right? Because it is about... It is about what's going to set Israel apart in the Promised Land. It's a code not just for what happens in the sanctuary or in the temple, but what might happen with the land and the people. And it's a code for ritual and personal conduct. Right?
Yeah.
It's ethical behaviors. It's a responsibility of the priests and the people. And this holiness code I think one of the interesting things about this passage, or the idea of Jubilee, is that it's dynamic, right? You can be holy, and then you can fall out of holiness.
Right.
You can do all the right things. So it takes practice. It takes vigilance. It takes constantly reminding yourself that it is about, not defrauding your neighbor and not getting a leprous disease, or it's this whole bunch of. It's a lot of chapters, with a lot of holiness codes, but it is really what is to set them apart.
The holiness code really stresses me a bit.
Yeah.
Because it's preparing. It's almost like this preparation, at least in this piece, because they're like, God is telling Moses what is to come when they get to the promised land, almost as, they're very prescriptive, but it's also this preparation for what is to come when you get the land. So when I think about, this idea of the 7th year having a rest, right, for the land, and then that 50th year is a celebration of all of those 7 times,
Right.
But they haven't yet
gotten
to the land, so they're imagining what
Right.
this could possibly look like,
Right.
because they have no
Right.
idea.
That's right.
They're going to a place that they don't know,
Yeah.
a place that they've heard about,
Yeah.
and preparing them for how to steward the land and
Yeah.
how to take care of the land in this particular holiness code, right?
And
each
not,
other.
Yeah, that's right. Not just the land, but each other. And it really is different from Egypt.
Very.
Very different from Egypt. Yeah.
Because essentially in Egypt, they were
Yeah.
enslaved generation after generation after generation,
That's right,
And
yeah.
in this text, they're talking about, as it goes on later on
Right,
in this
for
chapter,
sure.
about releasing those who had been enslaved, right? So that they might go home to their families.
That's
and all
right,
of that.
that's right.
That was not heard of in Egypt.
That's
It was
right.
generation after generation after generation.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah.
they would have made their way to the promised land 7 times 7,
Right,
however
exactly.
many years,
Yeah.
50 years before that, and 50 years before that, and 50 years before that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, it's freedom for the indentured servants, the slaves, the debts were forgiven.
Yep.
People got their land back, and returned to their land if they
Right.
weren't there. And even the land lay fallow for a time, right? That is a reset.
Right.
As you and Hannah talked about. I think one of the things that, as you said, this Jubilee is the accumulation of all of these celebrations, and a reminder of just how significant and transformative that kind of forgiveness is for the community.
Yeah, because it essentially says that you don't get to stay, like you were saying, in one spot forever.
That's right.
Right? Like your mistakes or your debts or whatever it is not a defining part for the rest of your life, that you shouldn't be held captive to whatever you
Right.
have been labeled with or
Yeah.
indebted with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My imagination goes wild thinking about that.
Yeah.
Just to imagine what it would look like if there was no desire, or I don't know what exactly. It's hard to put into words, because for me it's just so beautiful, the idea that there would be nobody who has any needs. There would be nobody who needs to beg on the street corner, nobody who needs to sleep in the doorway or on a park bench. There, nobody would be addicted and not have care. Nobody would feel shame about any of that. Because there was always going to be that relief. Every 7 years and every 50 years, it would be a celebration of whether or not we learned the lesson. Right?
That makes me think about mass incarceration, right, in this country, and the idea that so many people are labeled, right, for the rest of their lives. Like if you have a felony, then you are a felon, right? But what would it look like if folks had an opportunity to be redeemed and have this, title stripped from them so that they are no longer carrying the chain of what their mistake or their past, what does that look like?
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing for me to think
Can
about.
Can you think about that?
I can, and it's also like such a stark difference from the reality that it's mind-boggling a little bit.
Yeah.
Wow, what would that look like?
It really, we'll come back to that. I want to point out that I kind of had to giggle as I was reading through some commentaries about this passage, because apparently there was a big dispute as to whether or not it was the 49th or the 50th year. And eventually current interpretation says that Jubilee, it really is only observed when the Jewish people are in the land of Israel. And so it feels like one of those human nature kinds of things where we always find a way out. Especially the people with the money or with the means and all of that, right? And that's what struck me when I read this again, to hear every 7 years. You would think that you're forgiven once and everything's laid out. You would think, okay, let's just keep it like this. But every 7 years, you got to do it again and again, because there will always be, as you and Hannah talked about last time, there will always be people who will take advantage, who will earn more or hoard more and not give or not take care of. And there will always be people who will live a little bit differently and have different gifts and all of that stuff. There's always a need to have somebody below, and somebody above in the hierarchy and the wealth distribution of wealth, right? It seems that has to be the way it is. But every 7 years you get a taste of it. Every 7 years you get the opportunity to say, there is not a poor person among us. Right? Every 7 years you have the opportunity for a second chance for if you have been in debt, or if you were indentured as a servant, or if you lost your land and you did something stupid, or if you had too much, you had to figure out what it looks like and what it feels like to care about somebody, a neighbor, so much that you will give some of your resources to help them come above their circumstances. And I think that opportunity every 7 years is one that benefits both the wealthy and the poor, even though you might not think it would benefit the wealthy.
I think it absolutely benefits the wealthy.
Right?
Because it reminds us, I think the whole point of this is to remind us and the Israelites at this time that all of this belongs to God. Right? This land, the resources of the land, the vegetation of the land, all of it belongs to God. And so we are just really stewards. We are renting, essentially, I like to think. You know, we are taking care of this land that we have been, steward with to take care of and take charge of. Not charge, but to take care of, right? I think it's a reminder to us that none of this is ours, and that it all belongs to God. And so if it belongs to God, then it really does belong to us as a people, not just the billionaires.
And to have it built into the fabric of the community, of the society that they're going to be living into, at least in this idealist version, right? There are plenty of times for we in our culture to have that encounter. It's not necessarily built into our culture, but there are times when, you see somebody who has gotten cancer and said, why have I not been taking more vacation? Why have I been working too hard? Every time you go into your closet, you wonder, why on earth do you have so many clothes? Sorry, that got a little personal for you.
It did get a little personal, and I also do think that. I do think that to myself.
Right? But, or time passes and you begin to clean out cupboards or whatever, and you think, why do I still have this? Why did I buy it in the first place? Why have I lived the way of accumulation, of striving for things that really don't matter? And this is the opportunity that God builds into the ideal society that God imagines, that regular checking in,
Resetting.
Yeah, and if we really took that resetting and the lesson of that resetting seriously, we might then be able to say, I don't need to buy that much. And I don't know if and it feels good to help somebody.
Yeah.
Right? It just feels good to help somebody. I remember when I was still married, my husband won a call-in prize from a radio contest, and we got a surprise $10,000. And it was at the point where we couldn't think of anything we really needed, although we did take the girls to a Disney World.
I figured there was a Disney trip in there somewhere.
We took some of it and went to Disney World. But the rest of it, we gave to Interfaith Hospitality Network, who was taking care of families who were unhoused. And we gave some to Heifer Project International because we wanted to help a global world have food. And it felt so good to be able to do that.
Yeah, it does.
But this is more than just giving money. This is, standing in front of somebody and saying, you owe me $10,000, but I'm going to forgive that. You don't anymore. Right? It is much more relational. And when I have been in conversation with folks who are living on the streets or who are down on their luck, really get to know them. There is no them. And some of my best memories were working alongside Break Bread, the meal ministry we did in Colorado that brought together people from all walks of life for a free meal every Saturday night. And we sat like a family around a round table, and we got to know each other. And it was so beautiful to understand the pain of young people who were finding themselves on the streets and addicted and not loved, and so many bags to carry in terms of the baggage inside as well as the ones on their back, and to see poor widows that were in Section 8 housing and couldn't find anybody, really didn't have anybody to care for them. And the only meal they had with other people was our Saturday night meal.
Right.
And to see a homeless person and an elderly woman talk together and find community in that, wow, that's a little Jubilee for me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. It's a beautiful celebration of God bringing together and restoring.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Jubilee means too. To renew and to restore and to reset.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It is really hard to imagine that on a large scale. Right? I don't know what it would take to be able to really practice Jubilee.
Well, I think that's what you were saying, that it's easy for us to find ways to not practice it, right? It's easy for us to say, oh, that's too much. They didn't really do it that way.
Right,
this is an ideal that was set up. It's really easy for us to move our way out of it. But I think as we talk about imagination, I was telling you a few weeks ago that it hit me in the face that I don't really think I'm as imaginative as I once was. I think that I have intellectualized my imagination so much by saying, oh, that couldn't happen. So then I use intellect to assuage my imagination. And this is really allowing me to think more deeply about what can I envision and imagine. Right. Even if it doesn't come to pass as I envisioned or imagined, the idea of imagining allows us to do that holy work of possibility with God, I think,
Yeah, yeah. It's hard not to kind of go to easy solutions. It's hard not to be overwhelmed as you're trying to figure it out. But I think, I don't know, everything we've always heard is that it's all about the grassroots movement coming up. And I do think that there are a lot more, there's a lot more power and willpower is probably the main thing with grassroots than the people at the top, the 1% or whatever, right, who are calling all the shots. And I think we're seeing some of that politically these days. But at the same time, it still feels like we still aren't making a difference.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. But I think that's how the systems work to squelch the imagination.
Yeah.
Right? I think that if you can't imagine a different way of being, then you can't realize a different way of being. You can't bring it into action. And so that's what keeps us stifled, I think.
Right.
I'm including myself in this. Like,
for sure.
Thinking about the mass incarceration, right? Yeah. And what would it look like? I never thought about it in this way until we just sat in this chair, and I'm like, oh, yeah, what would it look like?
Right.
But it's hard for me to believe that it's possible.
Right.
Because I've intellectualized all that's around me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, society says this, and we've seen this happen, and this has happened, and history tells us this. Like, I can do all of that, but I think that's a different set of work that God's asking us to do versus this Jubilee work of reimagining in my mind. Does that make sense? I feel like there's a time and a place for the intellectual side of what's happening and the realism and all of that. But I also think that if we don't invite ourselves to imagine with God, then we will always be in a situation that there are people who are captive.
You know, there is something really powerful to think that this is the law coming from God as the people are getting into a new place to be their own, right? It is something powerful to think that this is how God imagines it, right?
Right.
And if anybody would know what could happen, I would think it would be God.
Right.
And so why do we let ourselves not think too hard on some of those things? And I think about all the different issues that I care about, that I want an ideal solution to. We honestly, we feed into the way things are or are not. And I think it starts there.
Right.
Right? It starts there with understanding the impact that I have, and the choices that I have, and the agency that I can offer to making things better. It is down to this, it's a personal ethic, as well as the ritual that creates the people. That is the example for the rest of the land, right? For the rest of the world.
I think about, like, you just were with your grandchildren, right? And they have these vivid imaginations.
Yes, they
Nothing
do.
has told them different, right?
Yeah.
They see, kids say these things, and I'm always reminded of this, right? Because kids are the ones who remind us, like, it doesn't have to be this way.
That's for sure.
We've created it to be this way. And so we have been conditioned. We get, as you continue to mature in life, your imagination is hindered more and more, and you are made smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until you're just another cog in the wheel. And you have no real imagination. And I think about myself even in divinity school, fired up and ready to go. And now I'm like, girl, what?
Yep.
That was, naive or whatever. But it was like, but you had the what is it? Audacity, I think, to imagine. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that kids have the audacity to imagine and to create and to think about things differently. And we've lost our audacity, I think.
That's the theme for this week, and we're talking about our money story here at the church. So what is the audacious dream we want to fund, right? What is it that we are doing that is so special in the world that we want people to be able to divert some of their funds to our church so that we can get this audacious dream up off the ground?
Well, one of them, I see such fruit from Dream School of the Arts, right? And all that's an imagination, coming to life. I think about affordable housing in a city where it's getting harder and harder to live in San Diego, right? And so what would it look like if our church was able to provide affordable housing for folks on our campus? I mean, that is audacious.
Yeah.
And we can tell ourselves it'll never happen. You know, people have tried to swelter our dream many times. But there's something about imagining it with God that tells me that it is possible.
That's right. So Dream School of the Arts, we've got folks who are in underserved elementary schools, students, dreamers we call them, that come and experience community and as it should be, right? And you walk into that space and you sense the warmth and the acceptance that these kids offer to you as a newcomer coming in, but they have learned that. I mean, I don't mean to belittle their families in any way, but it has just been strengthened their value and other people's values in that community. That's a small thing that could be like this 7 year after 7 year after 7 year thing that makes a difference, because in 7 years they're going to grow up and they're going to be teenagers and they're going to be going to college maybe, or doing whatever, and they are going to remember that experience, right? You mentioned affordable housing. Had a meeting just the other day about that. We're learning so much. There's low-income housing, there's affordable housing, there's market rate housing, there's all sorts of choices as to what you can actually build here. And I learned something, that a lot of the affordable housing initiatives that are happening in the city of San Diego, in the state perhaps, really they're trying to make it not be 100% affordable housing or 100% low income, but mixed incomes, because that's where you change people's lives.
Yeah.
The poor are connected to people who might have networks that they can get in. That's how, how do you get a job? It's who you know.
Right.
And then the wealthy people have a different understanding of what it means to be poor, because their neighbors are the ones who have the stories of difficulty that they can hear on that.
And it's no longer them over there, but
right.
It's us. That's my neighbor, as opposed to they just, those people. Yeah.
I will have to say, I also know that we have the whole white flight and the wealthy flight happens in neighborhoods. So again, that's why we need this every 7 years, because we still go back to some old habits.
Always.
But yeah, I think about what's special in our church. I think the fact that we are very diverse in our congregation, and we are more progressive in our message, is something that doesn't fly with the loud megaphone of Christian nationalists or of white supremacy, all of those other things. I think it's really, really important for us to keep putting out this good news for all people. That's something that I'm very proud of.
Same. I couldn't do the work if I didn't think that we were talking about all of God's people.
That's right.
No matter who you are or where you come from.
Yeah.
This would be a waste of time.
So, I guess the bottom line is we may not forgive debts. The Jubilee is not built into our culture, but there are pockets, and there are churches, there are people, there are organizations, there are nonprofits, there are people who are making this imaginative world of grace, of fellowship, brotherhood, sisterhood, all of us connected. They're working on it. And maybe that's the message we need to look for. And that's the grassroots that might actually move into something that could affect the world.
I mean, I think all change starts with small steps. And that happens by us imagining, taking the time to imagine with God, really.
Yeah.
I think imagination is a beautiful gift that we forget exists to us.
Absolutely. You can come visit my grandchildren anytime you want.
I think they're the
little dose
sweetest.
of imagination.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, there you go. Thank you for your conversation around this. I still get excited about the idea of Jubilee.
We have a lot to be excited about, I think.
Yeah. We hope you've enjoyed our perspectives. We hope you have or are forming your own perspective. And to help with that, we have a couple of questions for you. And we encourage you to get together with friends or other Patreon members on our Patreon channel and just share some of your ideas. We'd love to hear from you. But these are the questions we invite you to ponder. The first one is, what would you imagine if Jubilee was practiced? What would you do if all of your debts would be forgiven? And what do you think might surprise you if you were to learn more about someone who's living on the streets? Yeah. All things we have touched upon. You've heard what we think. We'd love to hear what you think. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
This is a production of First United Methodist Church of San Diego. To learn more about our events and ministries and to access additional learning resources, visit FUMCSD.org.